Award-winning Iranian filmmaker Sepideh Farsi has a new film out this week on the Israeli genocide in Gaza. Here's the trailer.
Where are you now?
I'm in North Gaza. This is my neighborhood. No one live here or there or there. There's no one.
When the war started on October 7th, I was traveling around the world, presenting my last film that talks about a war I've personally experienced as a teenager in Iran. I decided to go to Cairo in order to cross through Rafah, but I couldn't because all the roads to Gaza were blocked. Instead, I started filming Palestinian refugees who were just arriving from Gaza. Through one of them, I came to know Fatem.
I'm a photographer.
Yes, I saw your photos.
Meeting her was like a mirror held in front of me that made me realize how much both our lives are conditioned by walls and wars.
You have many options to die here in the South Gaza. You can die by bombing or fear, starvation.
Each of our conversations could be the last one, as Israeli bombs fall everywhere in Gaza all the time.
I miss so much.
Yeah, me too.
So every time we connect and I can see her face, it feels like a miracle.
The film subject who you saw in that clip is 25-year-old photojournalist Fatma Hassona. On the 16th of April this year, so the day after the documentary was accepted to the Cannes Film Festival, an Israeli airstrike killed Hassona alongside 9 of her family members. Now, at the time, Farsi and Hassona had been trying to find a way for Hassona to travel to Cannes and return to Gaza after the festival's conclusion. Of course, that was not possible. The film is on general release from this Friday. Earlier today, I spoke to its director, Sepideh Farsi, and I asked her to speak to me about Fatma Hassona.
Sometime around in late spring 2024, I was in the middle of a tour with my other film, the animation, The Siren. And while I was traveling, it became urgent to me to get access to the Palestinian voice from inside Gaza, because it became obsessional in a way, because I kept listening to different channels and different medias, and all they were talking about was about Palestinians as though they were just figures and, casualties, but never were there to address, whether in the studio, if people of Palestinian origin, descent, or people from inside Gaza. So I really felt the urge to get to know what that meant, being under the bombs. As an Iranian, I have some experience of the war. I couldn't get by anymore. So I went to Cairo, and since I could not cross and go inside Gaza, which was very naive of me, thinking that I could have. I was in touch with other Palestinian refugees, and one of them introduced me to Fatma Hassona. I called her Fatem, because I was still desperate to get this voice from inside. And the description I got from our common friend was that she's a brilliant person with a lot of energy, photographer, amazing girl. And when I met her the first time, which is the video that starts the film, that begins the film, it was literally that. I had the feeling that everything that I had heard about her matched the person I had in front of me. That smile, that energy, that resilience, she was solar, brilliant, all the while a very ordinary young woman as well, but someone very special as well, and talented. And so we spent a year speaking and exchanging videos, audios, text messages, everything, many things, on a daily basis. and we were so happy, both of us, I think. And you see that in the film, that it was such a joyous moment when we would both connect and we could talk, despite the disconnections, despite the low debit, despite everything. And I think I really got close to her. I really almost touched her. We never met really, but I felt that we were very close, and I think it was mutual. Until that moment, I knew a few days before, but I wanted the announcement to be public and official before I told her. So April 15th, 2025, the announcement is made in the morning, and I write to her to connect because I have something important to tell her. And it took her a few hours to go to a connection point that was always there, because she needed to move from her house and go somewhere else. In fact, that last conversation is in her own room, but it did take her time to connect somehow. Then I told her, and she was so happy, and she sent me her passport. I immediately, while we were talking, sent it out for a visa application. I was confident that we could get her out and she would be with me to present the film. And the day after, she was targeted and she was killed with her own all of her family, except her mother, who survived the attack by the Israeli army, of course.
And I mean, do you think the announcement of the nomination of the film to Cannes was connected to her targeting, to the Israelis killing her, deciding to kill her?
I don't know until they open the archives, they open the files. I would never know. Of course, I think of that every day. I ask myself the question. But as you know, and as I know, we know all that they keep targeting journalists every day, regardless of whether or not they're part of a film, just because they are journalists. It might very well be also that she was targeted only because of that, because she had done a couple of interviews, quite important interviews with Al Jazeera and another media in the weeks preceding her killing. And I think she was getting to be quite known as a photographer, photojournalist. And so it might be both of them. It might be only her being a photographer, and I wish I would come to know one day. But at the end of the day, it's just that she was killed because she was taking photographies. So,
I mean, has the Israeli army, I mean, I presume there's been no accountability here, but I mean, have they had to answer questions about why they bombed this building at that time? Have they sort of come up with some excuse, or sort of talk me through what's happened since the killing?
They immediately announced that they were trying to target a person from Hamas, a member of Hamas. And then they were asked by the organizations of Palestinian Journalists Association who that member was, because we know the name of the people who died there. It was Fatim's 10-year-old brother, 15-year-old brother, Yazan, Muhammad, 20-year-old, two sisters, one of whom was pregnant, and Fatim and her father, and the mother who survived, luckily. But so there was no Hamas member there, and we were asking them to explain who that was, and they never answered. So, it's the usual rhetoric of the IDF, always saying that there was a Hamas member around the corner. But after that, there was a report, a study done by Forensic Architecture, which is based in UK, in fact, the NGO, and they had evidence, the apartment plan, the photos and videos after the attack, and you know how they proceed. They do ballistic and 3D modeling and they conduct studies. And they concluded that it was a clear targeted attack, and the modus operandi was very similar to elimination of other journalists in Lebanon and in Palestine, because it's so horrible. she was living on the second floor of a building, and a drone was launched 2 missiles that went through the 3 top floors of that building, and they were programmed to explode only when they reached the second floor. So it cannot be anything else than a target.
And you sort of said at the start of this interview, you almost felt like naively you could just, as a journalist, go into Gaza and report. Now, obviously, it's widely publicized that Western journalists or international journalists in general can't enter Gaza. They haven't been able to since the beginning of this genocidal war. You, therefore, decided to partner with a Palestinian photojournalist in Gaza. Do you think that the role, the skill of journalists in Gaza has been taken seriously enough by Western journalists? Because I think sometimes there is this argument, we can't show you the full details of what's going on because we can't go in there ourselves. Do, I suppose, Western filmmakers, journalists need to sort of stop falling back on that excuse and saying, no, we can report what's going on, but we have to go to a Palestinian in Gaza, and that's what we're going to do?
I absolutely agree about this. I think they're doing an amazing job, the Palestinian journalists. However, or whatever their experience prior to this war was, what they've been doing for the past almost 2 years is absolutely professional, at the risk of their lives, obviously, and with in horrible conditions, meaning that not only they're risking their lives, but they also need to go to connection points to charge their batteries. They're lacking the least, the smallest bit of what is needed to be provide reports professionally, and yet they're doing that. So I think, and it's because of them and thanks to them that we're disposing of all these documentation about the genocide. Were they not there, or were they not doing this, we would be left with nothing. I know a similar situation in Iran when in 2009 and ever since. Non-Iranian journalists were, first of all, in 2009, were kicked out by the Iranian regime when the uprisings happen, and this happens regularly. And so if the Iranian journalists don't do that, or if the citizen journalism does not exist, but in the case of Palestine and Gaza, it's professional journalists who are really doing it. So I think we have to take them seriously and thank them very much for what they're doing.
And I wanted to ask a question, I suppose, about you personally, because one of the changes we've seen since October the 7th is obviously massive convulsions in Iran and the situation with their government there. From my perspective, they seem somewhat weakened, with so many elements of the so-called axis of resistance being weakened, Hezbollah most importantly. I know that you have been banned from re-entering Iran since 2009 due to your opposition to the regime. And I just thought that would mean you might have a sort of unique perspective on the past 2 years. And I wondered if, you could speak about your relationship to Iran over the past 2 years and how you have thought about that.
I'm torn, between my homeland and my birth country, my country, basically. Even if I live abroad, I'm still an Iranian and will always be. And I'm an activist for Iran and for the freedom of Iran. And of course, parallelly, because of the acuteness and gravity of what's going on in Gaza, I felt that I needed to do something. But it's not complicated in my head. It's very clear for me. I have a human stance, and as an activist, as a human global citizen, I know where I'm standing. But as a matter of fact, there has been a lot of confusion in the stances that have been taken against in the Iranian diaspora and in the world, amongst the world journalists and leadership, presuming that anything that on one side Israel is doing is self-defense and it's allowed, and on the other side, condemning things that, and for instance, for me, there is a clear line. I'm against the Iranian regime. which is a clear dictatorship, repressing Iranian citizens inside and even outside Iran sometimes, hitting us, dissidents abroad. And it does not mean that we cannot condemn what Israel is doing in Gaza just because the Iranian regime is doing the same thing. We can have, a human or a free point of view and stance, and say that I am against the Iranian regime and I am against Netanyahu and his government and the genocide that is happening in Gaza, and I condemn both. But this seems not to be always clear for everybody, and it is very hurting. So my relationship to Iran is that I'm still fighting for freedom and in my country, and I hope that it will happen soon. The women life freedom movement and generally the dissidents were hit even harder since the war started, after the October 7th, the retaliation of Israel, after the Hamas attacks, because the world attention went that way. And so the Iranian regime used that to put more pressure on dissidents. We lost many valuable lives. There were a huge amount of executions of dissidents in Iran since then. Yet women are still resisting, and Iranians generally, but we don't talk about it here. It's not a topic that is now, trendy, because Gaza and Palestine is such a tragedy, of course. But another thing that happened was that when Israel attacked Iran in June 12th, followed by the Americans attacked, again, Iranian regime used that moment of attention on the war in order to repress dissidents even more harshly. So every time there is but it's a classical, phenomenon. Every time there is a foreign threat against a dictatorial regime or even a not dictatorial regime, they kind of hide behind that threat and put more pressure on their opponents. And this really happened in Iran, and it's ongoing. We just have Sharifeh Mohammadi's death sentence. She's an activist. It was confirmed 2 days ago by the Supreme Court of Iran, and we're really fearing for her life. It is tragic because we really caught between two waves, and it's very hard to keep fighting as a human being generally for Palestine, for Palestinians, and also for Iran, because it is still dramatic inside my country. So sometimes we're like out of breath, we're breathless, but we have to keep doing. So
that was Sepideh Farsi speaking to me earlier today, and her film Put Your Soul on Your Hand and Walk will be released in cinemas from this Friday, so that's the 22nd of August. You can find a link to the film's full UK listings in the description below.